From the helicopter, you're looking down at the Queensboro Bridge, the 59th Street Bridge. The runners will be approaching that very soon, that long uphill climb, and then into the island of Manhattan, and it gets more and more fascinating the further they go. Now, Jim Lampley has moved ahead. He was at the start line. He's now at the Queensboro Bridge. What's the scene there, Jim?
Jim, I am at the bottom side of the Queensboro or 59th Street Bridge, the first place where the runners set foot in Manhattan. And, of course, from a fan interest spectator standpoint here in Manhattan, this is where the race begins. The runners are going to get a tremendous reception as they come across this bridge. There are literally thousands of people massed here along 2nd Avenue who will watch the runners face on as they come across the bridge. There are thousands more down at 1st Avenue who will line 1st Avenue all the way up as they run up into the Bronx. I would say as many as 2,000 or 3,000 right at 59th Street and 1st Avenue alone. And it must be a tremendous emotional lift for the runners as they come across here. A couple of points I want to make. There's a steel grate along the bridge, which is part of what makes it difficult to run there. Last year, because of rain, there was no carpet on the grate. This year, there is carpeting all along the grate, which will make it a little easier, but you can still feel the uneven surface beneath your feet. Last year, there was a tremendous crosswind, which bothered the runners as they came across the 59th Street Bridge. I went up on the bridge about 15 minutes ago, and there's virtually no crosswind at all. So conditions continue to be much better this year for Salazar than they were a year ago.
Okay, well, we saw you on camera there, and they made a left hairpin just behind where you're standing there, Jim. If you're wondering, you at home, why you saw cars moving over the Queensboro Bridge, it's because the runners will go on the pedestrian crosswalk, which is a side path across the bridge. They will not be running among the cars. Go, Gary, go. There's a number of Garys in the race. I don't know which one it is.
But none of them up with the lead pack, which is really broken off now. And there are 3 men up there that we had hoped would be able to run up there to their potential, and that's Gomez from Mexico, who was 2nd in the race last year, and then Graham of England, who has run one of the fastest times of all time, who seems to be running very well now and has been with Salazar all along. But there are also 2 surprises. Marzak from Poland, who is 35 years old and has run 2:13. And this is the worry of a favorite like Alberto Salazar, someone who comes from New Zealand or Poland, who you have no experience about. You don't really want to be with that type of a person with 3 miles to go and have no idea of his capabilities and the type of race he runs. I think Salazar knows Gomez's strengths. He knows some of Graham's, but Marsac would be the type of person that could rattle you the last 3 miles.
Well, right now we're looking at 1st Avenue in Manhattan with its singles bars and its trendy restaurants and its high-rise apartment buildings. Up until they took down the 3rd Avenue L, which I guess has been a couple of decades ago. I remember when they did it. That part of town used to be kind of rough and tough. It has been upgraded tremendously. And here is the Queensboro Bridge, and the leaders are moving across the 59th Street Bridge toward the island of Manhattan.
And there's a great shot of Salazar, and you can see by the railing there how little his head moves up and down. And that's an important thing for a marathoner. It's vertical displacement, which is really how much you bounce when you run, because bouncing hurts you in a number of ways. It's harder on your bones and muscles because of the pounding and the gravity. And it also loses time. And you can see how these lead runners, Marsac right behind him, just watch the top of his head. It's really probably only bouncing up and down maybe a half of an inch. The Mexican Gomez right there also, and right behind him, Rodolfo Gomez. We seem to have lost Graham of England, which is a big surprise. They seem to have lost him from that lead pack.
Just in the last half mile or so, John Graham does appear to have dropped back. Well, that's certainly Salazar in the orange pants wearing number 3, and Gomez with him. Whether John Graham caught a cramp or something, we'll try to find out from spotters on the course. We're panning past one of the pilings of the bridge. As for the women, they have passed the halfway mark. We don't have the time yet, but Julie Brown is leading now just by 10 seconds from Greta Weitz, Allison Rowe, and Christensen. So the 2 big women are not out of it yet. Craig Virgin, do you have any word on what happened to John Graham? Can you hear me?
No, Jim, we have no word. We lost sight of John when we came on the bridge, and we haven't had a chance to check out. We'll see if our spotters can help us.
Okay, we'll be on that. Craig Virgin on the lead vehicle had to get separated from the leaders because of the traffic situation, as you can see, coming up and over the Queensboro Bridge. A tremendous roar is going to go up very soon when the people gathered on 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue in a huge throng see these runners come off down that ramp and take that left hairpin turn away from 2nd Avenue towards 1st Avenue, then another left turn up 1st Avenue. Is it all depressing when you realize you're only about a mile from the finish line, but suddenly you have to head away from it?
That is true. If you were to drop out at the 59th Street Bridge, you could just walk over to the finish line about a mile away. But it's not depressing when they come around this turn, because this is where the adrenaline gets going. This is where the big crowds are gathered.
Are they really hollering, Jim Lampley?
Yeah, you can hear the noise as they go by, and Alberto Salazar looked very calm and very collected as he came off the bridge. He even glanced up for a moment to look at some of the spectators who are leaning off of balconies and out of windows in the skyscrapers along 2nd Avenue. It's really a remarkable sight.
You saw an arch of balloons that they were going under there. As they headed for the left turn to go under the bridge and up 1st Avenue. They're now going under the Queensboro Bridge. Look at the people standing along on the opposite side from which they ran on, looking at them, watch them go up 1st Avenue.
Wow, this is unusual. This is where Alberto, I think, wanted to blast on 1st Avenue with the crowds, possibly with a great amount of shelter from the building. It's a long, straight shot. He wanted to blast here, and what's happened? Gomez from Mexico, their 10,000-meter record holder, said, go ahead and blast, but I'm going by you.
But this is not Rodolfo Gomez, who finished 2nd in this race last year. This is Jose Gomez, so he is a surprise to be out leading this far into the race. You see him being handed water by the official water bearers in the New York Marathon. There are many thousands of unofficial ones, too.
Yes, at this point, this would have to be taken very seriously by Salazar. The lead runners, of course, have their own squirt bottles handed to them so they don't have to drink out of the cups and they can get the water in a little bit better. Rodolfo Gomez, last year's 2nd placer, is still within striking distance, and Salazar probably realizes that if he has 2 Mexicans with him over the last 3 miles of the marathon, they couldn't go home if they didn't try to work together. So it would be a 2-against-1 situation. Gomez and Gomez now bookends for Alberto Salazar.
Very true, and you can see the crowds growing and growing. By the way, there's a movie house they just passed that is playing what they choose to call an adult feature called Exhausted. There'll be a few people in that state of frame of mind when they go by here. So it's number C419, the unexpected leader, Jose Gomez, 10,000-meter man. That's about 6 miles from Mexico. He is not, once again, Rodolfo.
Well, what Alberto is probably thinking here, and you're mentioning his number is C114 because he has never run a marathon before. And Alberto's thinking, well, this is the situation I was in last year. This fellow's running his first marathon, and I don't know how good he really is, but he's going to find out in the next 47 minutes.
Okay, we're waiting for the leading women runners at the bridge. Here they come right now.
No, those are
these are still men, some of the slower men, but the women should be coming along any moment here on the Queensboro Bridge. Julie Brown still leading, the last we heard.
Well, that's Murphy from Gainesville, Florida, but I haven't seen any of the women.
Okay, well, they'll be coming along. Again, look at this shot from the helicopter. The steadiness of that mount and that camera is something I have never seen before. As I said earlier, you're looking at New York City in a way that no man has ever seen it before, really. Live shots on a Sunday morning, looking down into the streets, among the buildings, the apartment houses, the skyscrapers, and these men and women running through the streets of New York. Everyone I've ever talked to who has run in this race says there is no way to describe it until you've done it, and even after you've done it, you really can't put it into words. And I suspect that from this point on, it's much more so, isn't it, where the crowd grows bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, certainly from here on, they're going to have a tremendous crowd participation. They'll be going through Harlem, and then when they get into the park, it's just packed. The thing that I'm thinking right now is Salazar, you'll notice, has much longer legs than Gomez, and long legs help you going downhill, which is what they're doing on 1st Avenue, and they're going to be doing it for about a stretch of 2 miles or so. But once they make the turn and they start to hit the park, it's mostly uphill. It's a long uphill grade, and Gomez, with his shorter legs, may have some bit of an advantage. advantage on the hills.
Meanwhile, the crowd is growing at the finish line. That is where it will all end, just near the Tavern on the Green in Central Park, with the glorious autumn foliage all around. Just a minute or so ago, maybe you heard church bells. I thought I heard them in the background because it was noon on Sunday in New York. Diana Nyad is with us. Diana?
It's about 7 minutes before we're going to see the women on the bridge at the 16-mile mark, but evidently Greta Weitz is now less than 10 seconds behind Julie Brown in the lead. And don't forget, Allison Rowe, who's running right with Weitz, is a very strong second-half runner. Her last 6-7 miles especially are very strong. We still have a very tough, close race for the women.
I asked Allison the other day who she thought would win if she and Weitz came down to the last half mile together, and she said, well, I think speed will be good at that point, but strength isn't bad either, and strength is my strong point. So here are the lead men, however, still Gomez. That's the other Gomez, Jose Gomez of Mexico, and Alberto Salazar of the United States. He is the favorite. We're in New York, live at the Marathon. There's how they stand in the New York City Marathon. Salazar the leader, the two Gomez's of Mexico second and third, and then Ryszard Marszak of Poland, a 35-year-old runner. But the big news is that Salazar has begun to move away from everybody. He's all by himself, and the crowd along First Avenue is seeing what it hoped to see. The American, Alberto Salazar, born in Cuba, who moved here when he was 2 years old with his family, leading and on the pace still, it appears, for a new world best time. He predicted it ahead of time at the 16-mile mark. His time, 1 hour, 18 minutes and 19 seconds. That would bring him in at 2 hours, 8 minutes and 20 seconds. He would beat the best time set by Derek Clayton 12 years ago by 13.6 seconds, should he maintain this pace. No.
He's now 26 seconds ahead of the record. But as most experienced marathoners will point out, the real running, the real physical part of running a good marathon starts at 20 miles. But it's been very interesting. It's hard to tell from the last mile whether Alberto broke open this race or whether Gomez, in I guess my best Spanish, did an El Foldo and just really dropped off. He was pushing Salazar quite hard and then really just dropped off the pace. I don't know if Salazar caused it or if it was Gomez's own doing, but it looks like Salazar is going to be pulling away from here.
I'll tell you what the reason was. The reason was as the women start over the bridge. There's Julie Brown, the leader in the blue uniform, curly hair. The reason is that Salazar just did a 4:33 mile.
Oh, my.
Can you imagine a thing like that?
I think I can.
4:33. Once upon a time, that was the world record, and in this century, too. But there's Julie Brown leading the women's race.
Marty, what is a 4:33 mile going to do to him down the road?
Well, that's
20?
the question, right?
That's a very aggressive stab at the record. He may end up paying for that. It really is not necessary. He's on record pace, so he was close to it. He could have maintained a slower pace than that and still had a shot at the record.
Okay, Jim Lampley's at the Queensboro Bridge. Here comes Julie Brown to you, Jim.
Well, you know, you go to so many sports events, Jim, at which the men spectators greatly outnumber women. Here at 59th Street, it is purely Democratic, and I'd say, if anything, the women probably outnumber the men here. I've been here in past years when the women came through, and I can assure you she'll get every bit the same reception that Alberto Salazar did. So we should hear some noise when Julie Brown comes off the bridge in a few minutes.
Okay, well, we see you right there. We see the men coming down the ramp. Let's re-identify where we are, what we're doing, and who's presenting it. The 1981 New York City Marathon is being brought to you by Sperry Corporation. We understand how important it is to listen. And by Sears Roebuck & Company. For quality merchandise, wide selection, fair prices, and dependable service, you can count on Sears. This is Jim McKay with Marty LaQuarrie and Diana Nyad in our headquarters studio. Out on the race course, we have Jim Lampley, who we saw there. Is Allison Rowe in the blue uniform, the blonde hair, coming down off the ramp. Jim, was she ahead of Julie Brown or behind her as they came off?
Well, I was listening to your billboards, Jim, and watching for Julie Brown as she went by. There are a lot of male runners. I think that Allison Rowe may, in fact, have taken the lead over Julie Brown. In fact, that's Julie Brown who just went by in the blue and white, right? So Allison Rowe has taken the lead somewhere on the bridge. Okay, we'll double-check that. Thank you. Jim Lampley out on the course. There are the red, white, and blue arch of balloons as they take the left turn. We'll take the left turn. There they go into First Avenue. There is Julie Brown. Now, once again, Julie Brown is first or second. We're trying to get a double check on that. She is second. So Allison Rowe has taken the lead in the women's division.
And Jim, she is running a 2:25:30 pace right now. Alison Rowe from New Zealand.
Interesting that the first three men right now, as you pointed out during the commercial, all speak Spanish, and they're running through a Hispanic section of New York now. I think they're up into, almost into the Spanish section along First Avenue, so I'm sure they're all being addressed and encouraged in Spanish.
Well, we have two leaders who both look very relaxed. We had a short, brief glimpse at Alison Rowe as she came off the bridge, but she looked very, very smooth, well within herself, and Alberto, having thrown in that sub 440 mile, must be feeling very, very good to even be able to do that if it was his last mile right now.
Look how light the traffic is in New York on a Sunday. Boy, it doesn't look like that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday morning or afternoon. This is the Willis Avenue Bridge, which connects Manhattan to the borough of the Bronx, and that will be the 20-mile mark in the race. They'll be coming to there in just a little while now. Willis Avenue Bridge goes from, as I say, northern Manhattan, from Harlem into the South Bronx, into a very difficult area of the city and of our country, then goes for about a mile, then back over the Madison Avenue Bridge into Harlem again. And when they go back into Harlem, they're going to be greeted by a whole group of Boy Scouts and a Roadrunners Club up there in Harlem. They're going to have a disc jockey, and they're going to be playing Rocky and other inspirational music. Now, there is Alison Rowe in the blue uniform leading the women's competition, running past many of the slower men, and those men aren't all that slow. Some of them are probably pretty good runners.
Alison Rowe has a very beautiful, efficient style. She has been bothered with a hamstring problem and a little bit of an inflammation in the tendon in her ankle this week. Nothing serious, but evidently she's feeling very good today. She's now a little bit under 2:25:30 for a pace and has taken over that lead of Julie Brown's.
She did 15 miles in 1 hour and 23 minutes and has a pretty good lead at the moment, at any rate, over Julie Brown. She is a strong-looking young woman. At age 25, she can still have a long marathon career ahead of her. And remember, there will be a marathon in the 1984 Olympic Games, a women's marathon, in the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. She could be pointing for that at age 29. She could be just about right. Of course, ABC Sports is going to be there. I guess it's not too soon to mention that we're going to be out in Los Angeles at those games. Having a women's marathon to go with the men's is going to be very exciting. We'll be covering that one just like we're covering this.
Well, the runners are starting to prepare for it now. We might as well be also. Alison really does look very good today. I really haven't ever seen her run a marathon before, but she certainly doesn't seem to be straining at all. And she's got a nice pack of men around here. She's got some company, and I'm sure they're aware she's on world record pace. They'll probably give her some encouragement.
Well, she's a very attractive young woman. I'm sure she often has a pack of men around her. But on this occasion, it's a slightly different situation. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break as we come to you live and then return to the New York City Marathon. We're back again live in our studio here with the scene of the New York City Marathon behind us. I'm Jim McKay with Marty LaQuarrie and Diana Nyad. That is the Willis Avenue Bridge. That is the 20-mile mark. At 19 miles, Alberto Salazar at a time of 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 27 seconds, putting him 39 seconds ahead of the world's best time set 12 years ago by Derek Clayton of Australia. 39 seconds. That would put him under 2 hours and 8 minutes. Unbelievable.
Well, he's been running very well. He's been very relaxed. His plan was to run the type of pace he has been holding, but many a marathon's been lost towards the end. John Graham, who dropped off the pace at about 16 miles, one of the favorites in the race, was way ahead of that world record pace recently and took 7 minutes to run the last mile. So Alberto, who looks very good right now, he ran the last 2 miles in 9:25, still has to do some work.
Well, you know what Shorter says. He says anybody can run 20 miles. I don't think he includes me. He said the last 6 miles make the difference, and they are precisely at the 20-mile mark. Now, in a sense, the race begins here, doesn't it, Marty?
It does. The 20-mile mark in terms of the energy expended is really, as Frank has probably said many times, the halfway point. If you're racing with somebody, that's really the halfway point. And from a physiological standpoint, that's really the halfway point. Now, Alberto realizes that, but he's really that supposed wall at 20 miles. He just, when he got to that, ran right through it as fast as anyone has ever done it because he ran a 4:33 mile at one point.
And now he is about to set foot in the borough of the Bronx. You know, the first year that they ran a 5-borough marathon, the only time they set foot in the Bronx was to run across the bridge and run around a tree, which we may see in a minute. It's still there, I believe, and then go back. And the people of the Bronx said, hey, how about us? Let's run a little bit in the Bronx. So now they run about a mile from the Willis Avenue Bridge to the Madison Avenue Bridge and then head back again onto the island of Manhattan. So you're looking from overhead in the Bronx right now at the leader, Alberto Salazar, 23 years old, graduate of the University of Oregon from Wayland, Massachusetts, although he now trains out in Eugene, Oregon, headed for the Olympic Games, we should imagine, in 1984. And right now, perhaps headed for a new world's best time, but almost 6 miles to go. And here is where it really begins to hurt. At 20 miles, Salazar, by 20 seconds, there you see graphically, by the way, Yankee Stadium on the right. We won't actually see it. They don't go quite close enough to that. But the 20-mile mark there, Salazar by 20 seconds over Jose Gomez, Rodolfo Gomez, both of Mexico, and Richard Marshak, the 35-year-old marathoner from Poland. Here he is in the borough of the Bronx right now.
Marty, how accurate is Salazar's internal clock at this point? Does he know the difference between a 450 and a 455 mile?
I think he does. When you've got 19 or 18 of them under your belt, you've got the feeling. You're able to read your body's signs. And I think he knows that he really moved that 1 mile at 4:33. It may have been a downhill stretch, which helped him along. He may have hit a stretch where there was a good wind at his back. Right now, he seems to be laboring a little bit as he approaches that 20 miles. His stride does seem to be getting a little heavier, but he's out by himself now. If he's going to take a breather before charging up those grades in Central Park, this would be the place to do it. This is a lonely time for him. He is making the big decision now and deciding whether to go for it, because right now he's got to be confident of a win. But is he going to hurt and go for that record?
Well, he's running right now through the borough that is famous for the so-called Bronx cheer, the raspberry, if you will. But that's not what he's hearing right now. He's hearing nothing but cheers of encouragement. When they first started running through all 5 boroughs, many people, particularly outside of New York, I think, and a lot of us who live here, wondered how the people in New York would receive it. They're known as a tough people. They don't like to be inconvenienced. Would they, disturb the runners? Would they boo them? Maybe would somebody throw a tomato? It's been a revelation. The people have done nothing but cheer them on, except for the very, very occasional nut who runs out like the man who had to be shoved aside earlier in today's race. At 20 miles, Salazar's time, 1 hour, 37 minutes, 30 seconds. That is a 2 hour, 7 minute, and 50-second pace as you look at the finish line. He leads by about 100 yards over the 2 Gomez's. Would that be something? 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 50 seconds. He would just smash the world's best time.
Well, evidently, Rowe is still also on the world's best time for the women, running a little under 2:25:30 at this moment. And Julie Brown, who led for the first half of the race, has dropped back to 250 yards behind Rowe. And we cannot get any word at the moment on Greta Weitz, but we're looking out for her.
Okay. Allison Rowe, who has a slight injury herself. Yes, Mark.
Jim, earlier I mentioned I thought Salazar looked as if he was taking a breather or beginning to labor. He ran 5:03 for the last mile, so he did slow down a bit on that mile. The weather is really cooperating out there for the runners. As you run, one of the limiting factors in endurance running, or any endurance event, is your internal body temperature. And as you continue to run, if it gets up to a certain level, you've got to cut back. The temperature is beginning to drop, and it's getting cloudy out there, so it's perfect with about a half an hour to go for Alberto for cooler temperatures to take over. So he's got all the help there, but let's face it, he's at 20 miles, and of all the records in sport, there is probably none other which would take as much punishment as the marathon record.
No question of that, and of course Salazar, at least once in his life, almost reached that desperate point of actually death in a race, because up in Falmouth, Mass, a couple of years ago, he had a temperature of 108 degrees after finishing 10th. We may have pointed that out earlier. Rushed him to a hospital, and I believe he may even have had the last rites, but he recovered.
Yes, he did. It looked for a minute there as if he was going to his arms, using the arms quite a bit. Whether it was just a grade that he had to get up over or not, I don't know. One of the things that's going to be dangerous for him is if he begins to overstride or feels he has to start using his arms more, because the arms are not going to be able to sustain it for the last 6 miles. there are three things that slow you down in a race. One is if you start bouncing, and Alberto usually keeps that under control. The other thing is that your muscles begin to get tired and you can't maintain the stride length, and that stride shortens by 2 or 3 inches. He's got to fight that happening. And then the third thing, and this is one of the biggest factors, is your cadence. Instead of taking 60 steps a minute, if you drop to 55, it's very dangerous. And it looks to me as if his cadence may be slowing down. It's hard to tell because he's out by himself. When he was with the other runners, we had a little bit of a judge of that, but he certainly is feeling a certain amount of pain, perhaps more than any other runner before him, because he is on world record pace.
Craig Virgin, do you hear me?
Yes, Jim, I hear you.
How does he look to you? Does he look like he's laboring at all?
We've been trying to communicate to him with paper to let him know that he was on schedule. We gave him the high sign. He seems to be somewhat relaxed. He seems to be a little bit fatigued at this point. He's going to his arms. The key thing right now is the foot plant. If he can keep on the ball of his foot or coming off the ball of his foot, and he can maintain pace, he's got the record.
Okay, that's Craig Virgin in the moving vehicle out on the course. He is back on the island of Manhattan. They'll be running down Fifth Avenue for a while now. The island of Manhattan. There it is from our live shot. Empire State Building on the right, Chrysler Building on the right. Let's meet Manhattan up close.
The borough of Manhattan is where New York City puts on its dress-up clothes and plays host to the world. If you want to take an island vacation, you could do worse than here. That's what Peter Minuit thought when he gave the Canarsie Indians some trinkets and cloth for the whole place. Of course, you couldn't go skating in Rockefeller Center then, or shop at just about every famous store known to man, and particularly to woman. Manhattan is a permanent bazaar and a continuous celebration. Parades are a trademark, from Columbus Day to St. Patrick's Day, and quite a few in between. It's a dress-up place, all right. From the bands and the parades, to the models in the shops, to the cardinal on the steps of one of the world's great cathedrals. Manhattan is the financial and business capital of America. New skyscrapers are being built at a faster rate than ever these days. Musicians play in Washington Square Park or on the city sidewalks. Recently, a violinist was heard there and booked right into Carnegie Hall. There are people everywhere. 1.5 million packed into 23 square miles on an island 10 miles long and 2 miles wide. Now, that's about 65,000 people in every square mile, and they don't all go home at sunset either. Because Manhattan is also the capital of live entertainment. From symphonies to opera to Broadway musical. From Lincoln Square to 42nd Street.
Come and meet those dancing feet. On the avenue, I'm taking you to 42nd Street.
Well, they won't get down to 42nd Street, but they are in Manhattan now, and they'll get down as far as Central Park South and the big hotels, then back into the park. Right now they're approaching, as you see on the graphic, Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. Having crossed back into Manhattan over the Madison Avenue Bridge, they're going down Upper Fifth Avenue, and here again is the live shot as the crowds continue to grow and grow and grow. Alberto Salazar with the big lead over the rest of the field. There he is, number 3, headed possibly for a new world's best time to smash a 12-year-old world mark. And the way he's going now, he would smash it easily. However, remember, the hardest part of the race, the very, very hardest part, is yet to come. Looks like a good time to take a break right now and then return to our live coverage. Again, we're live at the New York City Marathon. Alberto Salazar running down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. We're told that the last mile he completed, he did in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Well, I can't believe that. He looks like he's laboring a little bit, as you pointed out during the commercial, Mark.
Well, he certainly would be if he had run a 4:45. At this point, we would question a split like that. Sometimes it gets confusing out there. There may be people yelling times that are not official. But he does have a 1-minute lead over second place, as does Allison Rowe. And that 1-minute lead at 5-minute mile pace is about 350 yards. So they've got comfortable leads. But as we know in the marathon, if you get into oxygen debt, if the muscles start to cramp, 350 yards can be gone very quickly.
Incidentally, Frank Shorter is in the race today. He was a last-minute entry. We have not seen him, however. He appears to be well back into the pack. There's the race for second with the two Gomez's from Mexico. 22 miles, 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 10 seconds. We're now told that was a 4:55 mile for that mile. As for the women's competition, we haven't been able to see them for a while, and there's a reason for that. It's because our moving vehicle is not allowed to go back into the pack of runners. There's a very real safety precaution that's being taken there. It's a valid reason, but obviously we'll get shots from our stationary cameras where we can't see the Mexican flag being brought out by somebody to welcome the Mexican runners as they come through Harlem. But Allison Rowe, let's see.
That's Allison.
There's Allison Rowe,
right
the leader
there.
in the blue, just going out of your picture. There she is.
About 300 yards ahead of Julie Brown, and evidently Julie Shea is in third place, looking very strong and moving up. This is Allison Rowe from New Zealand, 5'8", 129 pounds, very strong runner.
And she's at the 20-mile mark. The last 6 miles have begun now for the women. She has a lead, we're told, of about 300 yards, but Julie Shea still is moving quickly.
Allison has the second fastest time in history behind Greta Weitz, and she would love to eclipse that record today.
Okay, the strange sound of modern-day sirens clearing the way for the runners as they continue to move down Fifth Avenue, 102nd Street. They'll be coming down into the lower part of Fifth Avenue, by which I mean the 90s. No, 102nd is where they turn into the park. I'm sorry, they don't get into the 90s. There is Salazar, the leader, still running at a world's best pace. Behind him, but well behind him at this moment, are the Gomez's. And now we're told the Gomez's have dropped back. Toivola of Finland has taken over second place, and Hugh Jones of Great Britain has moved into third place in the race. Well, big change there.
Well, some of the runners who went out with Salazar at that very quick pace are beginning to pay for it. Jones, we just happened to point out at one part of the race, he's very easy to identify with his long red hair, was very far off the lead, about 40 yards early on in the race. And the Gomez's who went out with Salazar, tried to do battle with him, have now paid for it. So we may see some late surges. Toivola was 6th in this race 2 years ago. He may have a good run at Alberto, but Alberto has been sticking in there. He's still under 5-minute pace. He's going to be still hard to catch at this point unless he does a big turnaround here in his physical conditioning. He's almost assuredly going to run the best time ever by American, which at this point is 2:09:27 by Bill Rogers. He should have that.
Okay, there he is. The picture a little blurred as they go around the corner from our moving vehicle, but from overhead now you can see him. Headed towards Central Park is Alberto Salazar. However, he'll actually go down and then up again. You're watching live coverage for the first time on network television of the marvelous New York City Marathon. 26 miles, 385 yards through the streets of all 5 boroughs of the city of New York. And there's the leader entering Central Park on a beautiful autumn day. The temperature, 52, 53 degrees. It was 50 degrees when they started. Unquestionably has warmed up at least a little bit. There he is among the autumn foliage, people standing on the leaves, cheering him on. He'll come down here running the reverse way the traffic normally runs on this roadway, down to Central Park South and across Central Park South in front of the big hotels, then up into the park again and to the finish line. Remember, again, in second place now, we have Jukka Toivola of Finland, and in third place, Hugh Jones of Great Britain.
Well, he just passed the big 23-mile mark on the road there. He's now running through some hills. This is going to be a tough spot for him. He's really got to look down and see how much he really wants it. It's not something that you can decide in a minute. It's something that you've prepared yourself for years and years to answer this question, to be able to make yourself hurt. And as we said, he's on perfect pace to run the fastest American time, which would be to break Bill Rogers' time. And as many people know, Alberto and Bill, both from the Boston area. Alberto first saw Bill running and doing well in the marathon when he was a junior and in high school, and he admits that he's watched how Bill has done it and been able to maintain some of his training from Bill Rogers. So a man who he has to be in some gratitude to for showing him the way is now going to lose his record 10 years later.
And again, if you joined us late, Bill Rogers is not in the race today. At midnight last night, he dropped out, said he had misunderstood the deal with his sponsor, so he is out of it. Salazar lead, and we'll be back. Alberto Salazar, he hopes, running for a record through Central Park in the New York City Marathon. However, his 23rd mile was run at a time of 5 minutes 4 seconds, considerably slower than he's been running before. We should note, however, that that was all uphill. His time for the 23-mile distance, 1 hour, 52 minutes and 14 seconds. That is still a pace under 2 hours and 8 minutes, which would easily break the record of 2 hours, 8 minutes, 33.6 seconds. Encouragement on every side for Salazar. How does he look to you, Marty McCoy?
Well, you mentioned encouragement. There's a lot of spectators lining the course, but it really has to come from down within. I ran this marathon once with a friend, giving him encouragement all the way, and at about this 23-mile mark, when I tried to encourage him, he kind of looked at me with glazed eyes like, there's nothing you can say now, I'm on my own.
Let me ask you this, Marty. What are the sensations inside Salazar's body right now? Are his lungs burning? Are his muscles aching? What are the sensations?
The main thing is probably in his thighs. Alberto mentioned in our earlier piece that he was working on the weights because he felt that he used all of his muscles, and particularly the thighs, running a marathon. He's not out of breath. The marathon is still an aerobic exercise, which means mostly you're running with oxygen, so the lungs aren't burning. He's not gasping for breath as a sprinter would be, but it's really the effects of gravity over those 26 miles and the pounding, the soreness in the legs, possibilities of cramping, not being able to maintain his stride length. So
okay,
he's got to concentrate heavily now.
Here's the race for second place, Toivola of Finland. Now, the red-haired man who appears to be in fourth place, that's Jones of Great Britain, number 29 in between there, should be Victor Mora Garcia.
Well, Jones has certainly put on a good surge in the latter part of the race. Toivola has been around for quite a few years. He seems to be looking back worried. This is a very close race for second place, and it's something I don't wish on any marathoner, to have to out-sprint someone over the last 2 miles, because it's a very painful thing.
This is Dick Traum, the man you're looking at. He has one leg, and he started out hours before the rest. Only now have they passed him. He runs in this marathon every year. He completes it every year. A long-time member of the New York Roadrunners Club. And by the way, we'd like to thank the New York Roadrunners Club for their cooperation. It's been tremendous here. Also, the city of New York. Craig Virgin is down with the leader. How does he look now, Craig?
Jim, Alberto is paying the price for close to a world record pace here. He's having to reach from within. It's all concentration and relaxation. I sensed a bit of a slowing down, so I think it's going to be just how much of a cushion of margin of error he built up if he can use these downhills to come close to the record.
Okay, Craig. Now, we thought we saw number 29 there in third place. It was actually number 39 in the red and white uniform of Poland, Richard Marszak. So he's in third place. And in fourth place, Toivola, of course, of Finland is in second place. And in fourth place, we have Hugh Jones of England, who, by the way, is running his 4th marathon in 5 months.
Well, I would really have to admit that I hadn't done my homework on Hugh Jones, because for someone to run 4 marathons in 4 months and really expect to run this well in the New York Marathon is an amazing feat.
And now Salazar's times are slipping back closer to the record. He's losing time at 24 miles. He did another 5:04 mile. The time, 1 hour, 57 minutes, 18 seconds. The pace would bring him in at 2 hours, 8 minutes, 12 seconds. That would be just 21 seconds ahead of the record, but he's beginning to fade.
Well, there's probably no question in Craig's mind on the truck there, my mind, or even Alberto's, that it's going to be a replay of last year where he comes off of that last turn with about a half mile to go, and he was almost doubling up because he's cutting it very, very close. He knows it. He's got a watch on. We catch him glancing to it. At this point, he'll be hearing the splits. He knows it's close. He knows he's going to have to dig, and that's really what he's thinking right now.
Here is the crowd at the finish line in grandstands and lined along the curb, and among them Jim Lampley. It's quite a scene, Jim.
It is a remarkable scene, Jim, and as Alberto Salazar runs these last 300 yards or so up a slight uphill grade, he's going to have thousands of people running them along with him from along the side of that road there. It's worth noting that there is a timer above the finish line which will be fully visible to Alberto for about the last 100 yards of the run. So if he's within a matter of seconds and he needs an emotional lift, he'll get it from the crowd. He should know within the last 30 seconds or so of what he's doing about how close he is to the record pace.
Okay, Jim Lampley at the finish line. In second place, behind Salazar, is Jukka Toivola of Finland, the best Finnish marathoner. In third place, we have Marshak of Poland. In fourth place, Hugh Jones of England. Those are the leaders as they run through Central Park. A perfect autumn day in New York. And there is Central Park South with the hotels on the right. We'll see it when we come back. From a helicopter overhead with that steadiest of cameras, you're looking down on Central Park South and the hotels and Central Park and the women's skating rink. And now, close up, Alberto Salazar, still trying for the world's best time ever in the marathon. He's falling back, however, closer and closer to that record time of 2 hours, 8 minutes, 33.6 seconds, but he can still make it. Diana Nya's been following the women's competition for us. I understand you have word on Greta Weitz.
Evidently, Greta Weitz has dropped out on this side of the 59th Street Bridge, but all of you Greta Weitz fans, don't be disappointed. 2 days ago, she could barely walk. Her shin splints were so bad, she had the courage to start at a very good pace. She will be back next year, I'm sure, and thrill us all again. Allison Rowe still in the lead.
Here it comes, the 25-mile split. 2 hours, 2 minutes, 10 seconds. He ran a 4:52 mile in the 25th mile. His pace now would bring him in at 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 15 seconds. He would break the record by 18 seconds and 6 tenths. Salazar running for the record on Central Park South. It's all live.
Marty, what can he do? He looks hurting to me, but he knows that he's got a chance. What is he focusing on now in this last mile?
Again, he's trying to maintain that stride length, keep his quickness going, turn over those feet. I think he knows he's going to have to sprint at the end, and he might be trying to relax his arms at this point so that when he does come off that last turn, gets a glance at the clock, he can have some strength left in those arms to pump. As he hits the park, the last turn in the park, he'll be thinking about lifting his knees, pumping his arms, keeping his head from wobbling. He looks so perfectly relaxed now. He's so under control, but that's what's hard to do. To keep away those little idiosyncrasies that your body wants to do, the hand flapping, the wrist turning out, maybe the right foot going out to the side. And after he hits that finish line, I'm sure he will lose all control because it's been the same as leaning over a putt for 2 hours and 8 minutes, and there's a lot of emotional and physical relief.
You can see that vehicle in front of him has the time on it, so he can watch it all the way. He knows exactly what he has to do. Hugh Jones has just crossed the 25-mile mark, 500 yards back. Apparently, he's taken over second place. That's unofficial. But Salazar is the leader. He is the story. He and the record. Again, there is no official world record in the marathon because courses vary, but 12 years is a long time for a world's best time to stand up. And it is a well-documented fact that nobody's run faster than that since then. The records are kept. They are simply not official records.
You can see the New York City police here making sure to keep the crowds back and give him a fair chance for this well-fought and well-deserved record that he's on his way to.
He's got that clock right in his sight, so he knows he's got about 3 minutes of running, and I think he's experienced enough to know that he can only sprint all out without oxygen for perhaps a minute or a minute and a half. So I think he's looking at that clock to figure out a time when he can go and hold it and not stumble before the finish line.
Again, try to get that world's best time in your head at home. It's 2 hours, 8 minutes, 33.6. 33.6 will be the significant time to beat.
Right now, he's faced with that classic dilemma that Roger Bannister pointed out many years ago, how to run a race so that you hit the finish line with not an ounce left, but not run too soon so that you collapse before the finish line. Timing his sprint now is what he's thinking about.
A moment ago, you saw Jukka Toivola of Finland taking the turn on the Central Park South. He is still in second place at this point. Toivola of Finland is second. But here is the leader. He is in the final stretch. Back into Central Park. Headed for home is Alberto Salazar. A little problem with the camera, but we'll get it back. Here he is. A look for the rear. The press truck up ahead, our camera truck.
I think he'll start to push soon, and that camera truck better move if he has anything left, because he's got under 2 minutes to run, and he knows that his body can run without oxygen for about a minute. So he's got to try and lift those knees now. He's worked hard the entire way, and he's given himself a bit of a cushion, but he's not enjoying the fact that the record's in the bag.
And now the stands are on either side of him. He's in a funnel of sound. Tremendous cheers from the thousands of people in New York. He's passed about 2 million of them along the way since he started the other side of the Verrazano Narrow Bridge. There is the clock, 2:07:30 coming up. Again, the time to beat, 2 hours, 8 minutes, 33.6 seconds. He has about less than a minute to go.
And now you can see the arms. He's got a minute to go. Here are the arms, and a slight little hitch as he tries to lift the knees. He's really working. Now the face giving way. There's pain there, and he can't hide it anymore.
Well, they weren't keeping time back when Vaidipati ran from the plains of Marathon to the other marketplace in Greece. But since records have been kept, no man has ever run a marathon, perhaps, as fast as this man. Headed for the finish line, laboring, the arms pumping. Alberto Salazar from Cuba, Wayland, Massachusetts, and the University of Oregon, coming to the finish line. He's done it. 2:08:14 it appeared. That was unofficial as we watched as he went under there. The clock's still running, of course. We'll get the official time. There seems no question. Faster than any man before him, Salazar has run the marathon. Only the second marathon of his life. The first when he ran in this race a year ago and won it on his first outing after predicting he would do it. Now he predicted a record and he did it again. Old record was 2:08:33.6. His will be somewhere around 2:13 or 2:14. They'll be checking and double checking through the computers and the hand timers before they give out the official time. Marty, that's really something to see.
It was a tough finish for him, and for the spectators at the finish line, I hope many of them realize that they only saw the last edges of it. Alberto obviously was not in that much pain the entire way, but the finish line, if you want to see guts and determination, the finish line is where to be, and they saw it today. As we can see, Allison still holding up well, but she has not reached that point that Alberto did with the last 2 miles. We see Fritz Mueller, one of the top world marathon runners, running near Allison, pushing some of the people out of the way, making sure she's got a clear run at her record also. Boy, she looks as if she's in control.
Okay, Jim Lampley is at the finish line. Jim? Can you hear us, Jim Lampley?
I can hear you. There's a scene of mass confusion here at the finish line, Jim. Obviously, Alberto
Well, we see Salazar's face. We see your microphone and his face, Jim.
Well, you know that I'm here with him, and we're going to give him as much time as he needs, obviously, to relax. Fred LeBeau is right here with me. Fred, I saw you running up to the finish line behind Alberto. It must have been the most exciting moment of your life, too.
Okay, but I'm concerned about Alberto. I think he's not feeling good. He's not feeling good. Alberto, let's keep walking him a little bit, please.
Obviously, Alberto needs the time.
Well,
we'll try to do this.
And with good reason. That's Fred Lebo, the man with the beard who was talking, who is the president of the New York Roadrunners Club and the guiding spirit behind this whole deal. Unofficially now, second place to Jukka Toivola of Finland, third place to Hugh Jones of Great Britain, fourth place to Richard Marshak of Poland. However, he obviously is the winner. We'll get a word on his condition when we come back. Stay with us. It's still live, and the first woman is not finished. The blonde woman on the right of your screen, taking a look backward in the blue uniform, is Alison Rowe of New Zealand, leader in the women's division of the New York City Marathon, possibly head for a new world best time for women. However, we have not had times recently. We're not sure. The last time we had time, she was on record pace. And look, Salazar seems to be recovering very quickly there past the finish line.
Well, Derek Clayton in the 12 years that he's had the record, there was some controversy if the course was measured correctly, and he said, I don't care what you think about the record, but the man that breaks it will go through a lot of pain. And I think Salazar knows what he meant right now.
Jim Lampley, excuse me, Diana, Jim Lampley's down there. Jim, can you have a word with Alberto now? Is he okay?
Jim, Alberto has caught his breath, and in the midst of this tremendous excitement, it's an accomplishment in and of itself. Alberto, the greatest accomplishment perhaps in the history of marathon running, 2:08:14. You were alone for the last 8 to 9 miles of the race, and you had put enormous pressure on yourself before this race. Did you ever have any moment of regret during those last 8 miles at having predicted that you would break this record?
The only time I was worried was at the halfway point. When we came by and we were a little slow, 1:04:30. So I knew I was going to have to pick it up a lot. So I knew the pressure was going to be on because I was going to have to lead that whole second half. I wanted to pick up the pace.
Were you surprised to see Jose Gomez from Mexico, who had not run a marathon before, with you at 16 miles?
No, I'm never surprised. Just like I ran my first one last year and did like I did, anyone else could. So I take everybody seriously in there.
You threw in a 4:33 mile, the 16th to the 17th mile, actually the 17th mile of the race. Had you planned to try to throw in a fast one then, or was something that the pace dictated at that point?
No, I didn't plan. I was just running how I felt. Last 10 miles, I just decided that I was just going to forget about time and try and run smooth.
Marty LaCour suggested in the last 2 miles, as you prepared for yourself for this finishing burst, that one thing you'd be trying to do is relax your arms to try to get ready for a final sprint. What was going through your mind as you came down through the bottom of the park and across Central Park South?
Well, I knew that I was on record pace. I knew I didn't really have to pick it up. So all I was doing was just trying to maintain. I didn't want to take a chance and trying to pick it up and maybe tighten it up and maybe slow down even more. So I was just trying to hold what I had. I knew it would be a record.
Alberto, you've run past 3 million people today on this course. Is there something unique and emotional about this experience for a runner?
Yeah, the fans are definitely great. You know, they're just, in a way, you know, it's bad because they're making me run too fast. Sometimes I'm scared that I'm going to get too excited with all the yelling and cheering, that I might pick it up too fast. But overall, you know, they're just great. You know, it definitely helped.
Jim?
To have accomplished this, what could possibly be next?
Well, I don't know. I'm just going to relax and just take it easy for a while.
All right, Jim McKay wants to communicate a question to me. What would you like to bring up, Jim?
1984 in the Olympic Games. What about that?
Alberto, 1984, the Olympic Games. Will you concentrate on the marathon and the marathon alone, or do you have other plans?
Possibly the 10,000, but I'll go in whatever I think is my best chance of winning.
Possibly the 10,000 alone, or possibly the 10,000 paired with the marathon?
Possibly the 10,000 paired with the marathon. Never the 10 alone, though.
Okay.
One other question, Jim. What's he going to do tonight?
One other question before we go away, Alberto, and what is that, Jim?
What's he going to do tonight?
What are you going to do tonight?
I'm just going to have a quiet dinner with my parents and with my fiance. Just relax.
Congratulations on another successful visit to New York City, and as one who lives here, we can't wait to see you come back next year.
Thank you. I'll be looking forward to it, too.
Jim McKay?
Okay, thanks very much, Jim. A real good job by you at the start, at the halfway point, and at the finish line. Jim Lampley on the race course, and Craig Turgeon followed them all the way in that moving vehicle. Excellent reports from there. And we just had a great time in the studio, and are still are as we're watching Alison Rowe, still running through Central Park. 25-year-old woman from New Zealand, wearing the white gloves.
And she seems to be, she seems to be running well because she's been passing people now for the last 10 minutes. In the marathon, many times it's a question of going out and then maintaining, not slowing down. It's like a watch that's unwinding, but she seems to be picking it up at the end here. I don't think anyone, man or woman, has been passing her in these last couple of miles. She's really going at it.
Allison does look very good. She hasn't thrown in any lateral, inefficient movement yet. She's looking stronger and stronger as the race goes on, and she's always said that she runs the last 6 miles the best. We are having a difficult time getting her pace. We don't know if she's still on that world best pace or not, but evidently Christensen is behind her quite a bit. Julie Shea and then Julie Brown, who led the first half of the race, is running in 4th place. This is Alison Rowe from New Zealand. She wants Greta Weitz's world best time of 2:25:41.
There is John Graham, who led this race at one point and dropped back very suddenly. Still running it out, however. By the way, Diana, when you were doing your distance swimming and you got to about this point of a long, long distance swim, what did you start to think about?
Well, a lot of the things Marty talked talked about, you start thinking about physical things. If you're in extreme pain, the way Salazar was, Allison looks a little more comfortable because she didn't take it out quite that hard. But you start thinking about physical things, your stroke in swimming, your stride in running, rather than getting all consumed with the record and what it means and when it's going to be over. You focus in very precisely. And she does not seem to be laboring. Her arm swing looks good. Her stride looks good. You can tell she's a bigger, stronger woman than the average thin marathon runner.
Right. You saw the time there coming up to 2 hours and 18 minutes. The women's world's best time is 2 hours, 25 minutes, 41.46 seconds. Her lead at 22 miles was a half a mile. She's all by herself. We'll be right back. Still live at the New York City Marathon. We're waiting for Allison Rowe, for her to finish as the winning woman in the New York City Marathon of 1981 on a crisp autumn day. Temperature in the low 50s. Wind not too much of a factor during today's race. It's just about perfect conditions for marathon running. More credits are due on this broadcast as we near the end of it than we could possibly give. One man, Frank Quattoni, our engineer in charge, has done a job that is almost unbelievable on organizing these 26 cameras all over the 5 boroughs of Manhattan in 4 helicopters, Goodyear blimp, anything you want to name. It's been an unbelievable task. There's Allison Rowe and her time. Remember, she's headed, she hoped, for less than 2 hours, 25:41. Our producer today, Ken Wolf, has done a tremendous job. Our director, Craig Janoff. Johnny DeLisa, our preset studio director. The technical directors, John Piter, Richard Gelber, Rink Gunther, and Gina Plenty. Associate producers, Peter Diamond, Peter Engelhardt, Peter Lasser. The 3 Peters have been associate producing today. Associate directors, Norm Sammet, Larry Weissman, and Mike Lazzadona. Technical managers, Harold Robbins, Rick Okolsky, Bill Freiberger, and Vern Currick as the time goes on. Still running towards 2:25:41. Traffic managers, Ed Makasek, Frank Adamo, and Paul Pollack. Unit managers, Arthur Berdagian and Harriet Hochberg. Assistant producer, Jimmy Roberts. Less than a mile to go now, so let's concentrate on Allison Rowe of New Zealand.
Allison Rowe is a strong finisher in Boston this year in '81, where she ran her second world best time. She passed Patty Catalano at 21 miles like a shot. And here you are, you can see her. She's coming up on all the men in the field who are around 2:25, and as the clock runs, it's Weitz's record of 2:25:41 that Allison Rowe is shooting for.
Coming up immediately following our coverage of the marathon, ABC's Issues and Answers. Frank Reynolds will be in Washington. The interview is with the new Prime Minister of Greece. Well, something appropriate there. That's where the marathon started. And that, of course, will be as many times it is, except on the West Coast, where you're getting our coverage in a different way. All right, there's the time. Coming up on 2 hours and 23 minutes. 2:25:41, the time to beat.
It's very close now, and at some point very soon, Allison is going to have to say, it's close, I'm going to have to move, I'm going to have to change my form, I'm going to have to use the arms, try and lift the knees and actually sprint, because she can't just maintain this pace. She's got to dig down, she's got to use those arms. And again, as Alberto did, she's trying to judge when she can start and hold that to the finish. As we saw, Alberto really in the last 200 yards drastically was slowing down, and she's trying to also time that last surge perfectly.
Around Columbus Circle now, and a right turn into the park. She goes up over one piece of grass right there, about 10 yards wide. Right there. That's the only grass they touch in the entire race. She's coming to it right now. 7 blocks to go. That's the way you got to put it in New York City. All New Yorkers know how far that is. They'd take a cab for 7 blocks.
And the crowd cheering and yelling in full force, just as they brought Salazar in. They're going to try to bring Allison Rowe in under the world best time of 2:25:41.
Well, at this point, we were confident that Alberto was going to get it, but for all these thousands of spectators, it's kind of like watching an accident happen. You know, you want to do something, but you can't. Only Allison can do it right now. She's the one that's put in the miles and trained her mind, and it's going to be very, very tight for her. She looks placid within herself, almost unhurried. I don't know if she knows how close it's going to be.
And again, I noticed how the men in front of her being very careful to get out of her way, not to slow her up in any way.
Don't
listen
wave,
to this
Allison,
crowd.
don't wave.
I guess you can hardly help it. There are tens of thousands of people making this funnel of sound, as we said when Salazar came in, cheering, if anything, louder than when the first mare came in. Looks like she's about 9 seconds ahead of the record. The record, 2:25:41. Allison Rose still looking strong.
She's starting to pour it on now, Jim, Marty. Arms cranking a little bit more. Evidently, she's 9-10 seconds ahead of the record. I think she knows it, and here she comes toward the finish line.
What a moment for her to remember all her life. She passes a man, apparently in the colors of Mexico, who has literally been slow to a walk, but not Allison Rowe. It looks like she'll run the marathon faster than any woman before. 2 records being seen here today, the first time the race has ever been televised live by a network. Look at her go. The time to beat, 2:25:41.
She's really got the orange. Now, she looks like she's running a mile now. She's just gone to the orange, and this is her old track. She was a very good miler. The face is starting to show it, but the body looks great.
Let's watch and listen to the sound as she's under. She did it. It looked like 2:25:30. That's unofficial, but she was certainly well under the previous women's world best time of 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 41 seconds. To see both of these things happen on the same day, on the first time anybody's ever gone all 26 miles live. You know, we covered in the Olympics, we used to cut back and forth to other events and so forth. So it's been a great thrill for me. I don't know about you.
We certainly had a rare opportunity to watch 2 hours, which was the culmination of 2 athletes' great careers, watch them build to it, and right down to those final seconds. One, really, Alberto having to really go for it, and on the other hand, Allison so confident and gracefully knowing she had the record in the bag and just coming across easily.
Had the kiss from Fred LeBeau, the president of Roadrunners. This is Jim Lampley. Jimmy, is she ready yet or not? What do you think? Jim, can you hear me?
Here we go.
Jim Lampley?
Yes, Jim, I'm right here.
If
And
she's
Allison
ready, go
Rowe
ahead.
is in remarkable shape. You've just run the fastest marathon time ever by a woman, and you don't even seem to be breathing as hard as we might expect. How do you feel?
Oh, I feel wonderful. I never thought that this course was going to be fast enough for a world record for me anyway, but proven good course.
So it wasn't necessarily a specific ambition of yours coming into this race to try to run the fastest time ever by a woman?
My ambition was to run and to win. That was the most important thing, whether it was a world record or 2:30.
Allison, when did you first become aware that you might be close to a pace that would give you a chance to get under 2:25:41?
I wasn't really aware of it until 20 miles. I don't sort of keep time checks along the way. I prefer to run with the athletes and ignore the time, especially in a field like this where it's very competitive.
You ran back in the pack for about the first 14 miles, and then, according to what we perceived, you must have passed Julie Brown somewhere on the Queensboro Bridge. Had you planned to make a push at that point?
I hadn't planned, but unfortunately, Greta had to pull out with bad shin splints. And then at that stage, Julie Brown was in front, so I made an effort to catch her. And when I realized that the pace was slowing a little, I just pushed ahead with a few of the guys.
Spectacular day for a marathon. Did the crowd help you along? You've run before about 3 million people today.
I think that this is the sort of crowd that really lifts one's spirit. It makes a tremendous amount of difference. You can run really quickly in the atmosphere that they have here in New York.
You might be interested to know that Alberto Salazar finished in 2:08:14, the fastest marathon ever run by a man. So you're part of a tremendous double accomplishment today.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be a part of it.
Well, congratulations to you, Allison, and congratulations on winning this marathon and running, once again, the fastest time ever by a woman. Great race.
Thank you.
Jim McKay?
Thank you very much, Jim Lampley. Distance runners normally hit the peak of their career in their late 20s. That being the case, 23-year-old Alberto Salazar and 25-year-old Allison Rowe should be right on schedule for the 1984 Olympic Marathons, male and female. There will be both at Los Angeles. We'll be there, too. We hope this is a sample of the kind of stuff we'll be bringing you from Los Angeles in '84. Let's take a break, and then we'll be back one more time. All right. right, stand by now for ABC's Issues and Answers coming right up. Frank Reynolds will be in Washington, the interview with the new Prime Minister of Greece, Andreas Papandreou. Now we have the official order of finish for you on the New York City Marathon of 1981. We can have a look at that. Of course, the winner in the men's division was Alberto Salazar of the United States out of Eugene, Oregon, his previous home in Wayland, Massachusetts. The women's winner, Alison Rowe of New Zealand, and the most significant fact, both of them setting new world's best time. Here was Salazar finishing in 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 13 seconds. Second, Jukka Toivola of Finland, you saw there, Jones of Great Britain third, and the Polish runner was fourth. The women's time is also official now. It is 2 hours, 25 minutes, and 28 seconds set by this woman, Alison Rowe. There she is, under in 2:25:28. Remarkable achievements today in the streets of New York City, all live, brought to you by ABC Sports. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. United flies more people to Hawaii than any other airline. That's what friendly skies are all about. Again, the winners, Alberto Salazar and Alison Rowe. Jim McKay with Marty LaQuarrie and Diana Nyad saying so long.